Hello, good morning. This is Steve Good on the road for ODU. I'm with the ODU Institute for Innovation Entrepreneurship. We're also part of the BWIC program, and we're taking this opportunity to chat with some businesses in the Commonwealth, and hopefully from this, is you're going to learn a little bit of how they got started, what they did right, and maybe what they would have to do over again if they had a chance. But again, we want to people to get to know some very successful businesses we've come in contact with here as we work throughout the Commonwealth and with entrepreneurs. And today we're chatting with Miss Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker of Red Hawk Strategic Solutions. Did I get that right?
You did.
Thank
Very
you very
good.
much. Elizabeth, or do you like Liz or Elizabeth?
Elizabeth's good. Yeah.
Elizabeth. Okay. Elizabeth, what is Red Hawk Strategic Solutions? What do you
So
do?
I founded it because it was an extension of what I did my corporate career forever. So I started out doing business consulting and strategy. And it was really interesting because I thought that's what I was just going to be doing, is strictly strategy and growing people's businesses and looking at where they needed to niche. And then what happened, Steve, though, is about 2 years into it, people came up and started asking me to provide an additional service. And I know you're going to get deep into some of the juicy parts of it, but that was really interesting because I was not paying attention. And that's when the business morphed into becoming training and speaking. And I became much more than just consulting and taking businesses to do growth or innovation.
Well, you said the juicy parts. Now you got my interest going. What? What? So okay, let me get this. You started what you thought you were going to do.
Yeah.
And is it the fancy word? Did you pivot or just found
Yeah.
something or diversified or?
I pivoted. I still help businesses and I love doing that. I love rolling up my sleeves and helping them figure out why their business isn't growing and how they need to niche. Or for example, if one part of their business is not doing well anymore, maybe we need to close that down and then open up a different avenue. I'm really good at that. But what happened along the way, though, is my interpersonal skills, which some people call that networking years ago. I call it connecting and collaborating. But that became so obvious to people that I had business professionals coming up to me going, "Hey, can you teach me to do that thing you do?" And I never dawned on me when I started Red Hawk Strategic Solutions that was going to be one of my strategic solutions, is teaching people how to talk to one another and how to connect and build a relationship and follow-up systems and networking and how to use it. I had no idea. So it's interesting how you start with one thing and you think that will be your core competency because you've done it forever. And then something else that you love even more, because I love people, and that's how you and I met. and it brings joy to me that I get to help people make better connections.
But as a business,
yeah,
we have these startups, and it could be anything. It could be an IP, it could be building a new widget, gadget, whatever it is, or it could be just simple. I won't say simply because there's a lot going into baking a cake or running any kind of a service type business. We get really focused on this is our business,
right?
And I won't say you're tunnel, but you become very tunnel because you drive into I got to make this work. But what really triggered? You said to me, you were going down a path, and all of a sudden, this other thing started evolving.
It did.
Well, in other words, how do you, as an entrepreneur, how do you kind of stop and go, wait a minute, I got something else growing over here?
Well, one is you have to really listen, and I was doing a lousy job of that because there were enough people that were asking me, and I wasn't paying attention. So finally, I'm standing in Atlanta. I'm at an event I've never been at before. I don't know anybody. There's all these men and women mixing around. I remember standing outside in the lobby, and there was like maybe 100 people, pre-COVID days. We're mixing together. We're really close together. It's very congested. Some people are going to the left, some are going to the right. And people kept walking up to me. And when we started a conversation, they would hold up my business card and they'd say, "Oh, Red Hawk Strategic Solutions. Oh, so do you do?" And then they would always continue to ask the same thing. They'd say, "Can you teach me how to do that thing where you're talking to people?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And I kept correcting him, Steve. So that's why it's such a really great lesson for entrepreneurs or anybody that's listening about they want to do a business. People will tell you what you're brilliant at, and people will ask you for it. I corrected over a dozen people that day, getting very irritated with them, going, no. And I'm thinking, it's on my card. I don't do that. And then finally, I remember she was shorter than me because I remember I was looking down at her. She had dark hair. I wish I knew the woman's name because I would love to thank her to this day. And she looks up at me while she's holding my card, and she puts it in terms that could get through my thick brain that day. And she said, Elizabeth, can I pay you to teach me how to talk to people? And I felt my head going, nodding. It was like God was pushing my head forward going, and I said, yes, you can pay me and I will teach you. And oh my goodness, it was like, and then I just felt so foolish, right?
Well, that's the
whack, whack.
Okay. Pay me?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you gone into a business and you tell them, you'll say, hey, like last week I was in there and I was at a restaurant and I said, hey, do you still have the, and I don't remember what it was called, like the Thunder Dunder dessert or whatever. Oh, no, we don't carry that anymore. I said, well, that was why I came in here. Oh, we know that was our best dessert, but we don't have that anymore. And I'm like, well, you might want to bring it back. And you know what she tells me? Yeah, everybody says that.
And for those that Elizabeth and I have known each other for a few years now.
Yeah.
Few years. And what is the feedback is Elizabeth, and this is from my own personal experience, is what I call a super connector. And there are people that connect people and network. You know, we used to call it networking. Now it's calling connections. And there are people that actually will, I hate to say unabashedly, and that's not a good word, is actually will connect people just for the sake of connecting and, you know, making deals, not necessarily looking for something to gain out of it. It'd be nice if you do gain something out of it, but not necessarily. So Elizabeth is one of those super connectors that go just for the good, to keep that, builds a reputation to have that. And she's one of those few that I have met in my life, and does a really great job at that. So if any of you ever get a chance to do one of her seminars about how to connect and all that, I will recommend you attend that, frankly, from my own experience. Now, getting back to what we were talking about here. So you got this, you got it growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's it going?
So
when did you do that? What year did you start that up?
So that started in 2017. So I kicked off the business in 2015 in December, and then 2 years into it, 2017. So 2017 was great. It was 2017, 2018. I was rocking it with doing the training. I was teaching what I called growth networking. And I actually was lucky enough to get that URL, growthnetworking.com. So it's like, okay, so now Red Hawk is expanding. Not only am I doing strategy, but I'm also I'm doing training. And for the first time ever, and you'll love this, remember when March 2020 hit? March 16th, to be specific, I had an entire sold out 6 months of training all lined up, in-person training. So we were doing really great. So I had to start taking it on virtual, and that made it a little bit more problematic. But in the meantime, this is where the pivot even began again, is that then the next thing was that I kept getting asked to write the book. And I wrote a book called Collecting True Friends. And the book takes what we're talking about, the connecting, the collaborating, how we show up, how we look at people, how we don't look at people as transactional. We look at them from our hearts and from our heads. And if our values align, then we say, hey, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. And that's the whole collecting is the verb, collecting true friends. So that's when a book got introduced. So then last September, I became a best-selling author on that. So Steve, the point is, it's like you start at one thing and then your life as an entrepreneur is going to continue to change. It's when we think we are in control of it, we're really not.
Does that run counter, that method of connecting with people, does that run counter to the philosophies I've run, you know, because I've done, as you know, I've done sales. And my thing is, where I loved it is, you know, the only reason you're not making your sale quota is you haven't asked enough people. You know, you need to, the sales funnel, you know, and those that believe in it, you got to do something like that. But I got to ask 100 people, and then so I can get 5 sales. And it's, you know, I don't want that relationship stuff. I just got to go. And I've known people that are very, very good of like knocking on doors.
Sure.
I knew a gentleman that he was just phenomenal. Almost like a tank. He didn't care as long as you didn't get personal with him. He could slam the doors, but he would say, "I will knock on so many doors a day," and he got his numbers. But it seemed like an awful hard way of doing things. It really always did.
And I would say it aligns with that in the one aspect that once you start building that reputation and that network and you have people, like when I did a presentation yesterday to a group of kids getting ready, well, they're not kids, I shouldn't say that, they're getting ready to go into college. So college students, right? But to me, and I think when you get over 50, you think of other ones as a kid. When you have children. But anyhow, I was telling him, and I said, I could pick up my phone right now and I have about 1,500 contacts in it. And the beauty of when you have warm connections with people or people remember you in a good way is that even if you haven't talked to them in 6 months or a year or 2 years, you can dial that number. And if they're not in the middle of a meeting, they're going to pick up. But so the difference between the gentleman that just gets to his 100, those people aren't going to pick up his phone call. They don't really care about him. They were interested in him for the product. So what Collecting True Friends is about, it's the concept that we're building our personal brand. Mm-hmm. We as Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker and Steve Goad, it's like what we are known for. Are we reliable? Are we trustworthy? Are we fun? Do people want to be near us, or are we a drag? So it's our reputation, what we're known for. And that's what is different than someone that just wants people as numbers like cattle versus I would love to have 100 people I'm going to talk to. That's great. But out of those, what I'm doing in the verb of the book, the collecting part, is that just like with any collections, like when you're walking on a beach and you're picking up seashells, you don't pick up every seashell, right? You look at which ones meet your description of what you like in a seashell. Or you're thinking, well, I don't want the ones that are broken, or I don't want the ones that are too big or too large, or I would just only want pebbles, or I only want sea glass. So it's like that with people. So if I get 100 people, I'm going to look at the ones that line up with my values. I'm going to look at the ones that say and do the same thing congruently. So for example, if they cut me off in traffic, true story, as they're beating me to get into the elevator, true story, and then they get into the meeting room, and then they want to tell me what a great guy they are. Okay, well, dude, I remembered you in the little red Honda, and then you wouldn't even hold the door for me, and now you want me to do business with you? It's like, so he's not the seashell I'm going to pick up. Okay, so out of the 100 people, back to your analogy, yeah, I'd love to meet 100 people, but I know in my heart and in my mind, because I've done the process, and that's what Collecting True Friends is about. It's the concept of that. You got it down so tight that when you start meeting people, that you've done your self-check and you know the type of people you want to bring in your life.
But how do, again, there would be people that would say now here's the other extreme. They used to call it relationship selling. Is that, again, there's that big selling is still a part of it. Sure. Is you develop these relationships, but you never close a deal. You go so far, you're so enjoying connecting with people, not thinking about selling something or moving something. Is there an extreme? Is there an extreme? You could collect friends on top of friends, but if you're in a business, there's something you've got to move.
Right. And the difference is that's where it goes from collecting and connecting to collaborating. Because when we're purposeful and we say to people, so for example, I reached out to someone I haven't been able to talk to in months, and she'd reached out to me a couple of times, and I called her and I was like, hey, I am finally up for air. I have missed you. And we talked for a little bit, but by the end of the call, since we both have businesses now, we became friends. She actually started as my client out of a warm referral. So she came in, she was referred to me, she became my client, I helped her, we grew her business, and then bam, our values aligned. So now we were just doing a follow-up call. So I was telling her about my next client that I'm working on this week, and she was like, holy cow, I would love to be part of that. And then we brainstormed, and you know what, she's got a great component. So I'm going to hire her to be part of that last class that I bring in. So, I mean, that's the kind of thought with collaboration. But if we just stay, and you're correct, if you just stay in the mindset of this is only a friend, I can't talk business. I can't ask them for anything, or they're going to think I'm cheesy, or they're not going to take me seriously. Well, then you need to shift your mindset, because if somebody's really your friend, they will help you. And if you don't like the term friend in business, call them your ally. You know, I mean, it's whatever term you feel comfortable, but I like to think that if I'm friendly with somebody, why wouldn't I consider them to be my friend? They don't have to be my true friend in business. But here's the second part to that, Steve. You have to be strong enough and confident enough that what you offer and your value, that then you're going to be the person that's going to ask. And when you do an ask, you expect to then give something back. So get to know enough about what they're doing. It's just like I knew this lady because we'd grown her business, that when I started telling her about it and she pitched it to me, I went, you know what? This could work. And I knew her credibility. I've seen her in action. I felt comfortable with it. I wasn't me going, oh, I don't know, how's that going to work if I bring you in there? So when you have a reputation with somebody and they see you in action, not the elevator guy, when they see you in action in a good way, they'll go, hey, yeah, plug and play. Not a problem. Come on in. And then you know what? Then you go have a drink with them. You know, you can have both in your world. Business does not have to be boring and dry.
So it could be a person, could be either a client, could be a collaborator, could be, it depends on the situation, what's coming up. If you had to do it all over again,
sure.
You know, if going back to them, what would you have done differently?
As an entrepreneur or in corporate all those years?
Anything, whatever you feel like. You're speaking what this is like a tidbit. Hopefully what you'll see is people are in all different stages looking at these videos.
In my corporate career, I would not have worked myself almost to death. I did that almost twice. I literally got myself so sick I had to go be put on a park bench. It's like the doctor's like, go sit over there, go get well. You know, there was an old expression that people used to say when we were kids, and they used to say, tired to the bone, or worked yourself to death, or exhausted to death. Exhaustion is a real disease. And yet in America, which I don't see my counterparts, and I have a lot of international friends, and I don't see them suffer from it the way Americans do. But we have this, we wear like this badge around us, like, well, I'm so busy, or I did X amount of projects, or I slayed 10 dragons this week. So if I had to go back in time in the corporate career, I would have told myself, I would have said, Elizabeth, it's not worth it. You need to stand up more for yourself and tell them, you've got way too much on my plate. And I don't, and then their expression always was, well, then get a bigger plate. And I would have had to just stand up more for myself and said, I know you keep dumping it on me because I deliver on time, under budget, and within the deadline, which is always impossible. But in the entrepreneurial world, what I would do, because I did carry that philosophy forward. I said, okay, the idea of owning your own business, in my case, not in everybody's case, if you're younger, you know, you got to pay your dues. You got to put in your 60-hour, 70-hour work week starting your business. But in my case, I had the luxury of that. I got myself financially set. So when I started Red Hawk Strategic Solutions, Steve, it was at a point that I knew, I was like, I'm never working myself 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, to the point that then I'm collapsing again, because that's fruitless. It's like your family doesn't want you working that hard. So then you get sick. So that was my biggest lessons, I would say. And then also on the flip side of it, the other thing I would tell everybody is do what I did and have some fun and collect great people in your life along the way. The people that are now in my life, I've known a lot of them for decades. And we started out, they were vendors that were working. They were contractors I met along the road. I met them in school. I've met them in church. I met them in the neighborhoods that I lived at different places. Have fun with the people and look for younger friends than you and older friends for you. Just don't look for people that look like you and sound like you. And business is a great place to find great people in your life. You know, I mean, it's not just there because you're making a paycheck. You spend more time with those people.
Really, then again, the lesson learned would be early for a business starting off is look for those connections, look for those people that you can, not just a client or somebody collaborate. Again, you can be a coach mentor, but even if it's coach mentors, it's someone you would carry on, you know, after you're in a program, you're in that role of coach mentor, but would you carry on after that role changes?
Oh, you know, that's brilliant. That is really brilliant. And oh, I love that. I love that. I hope they heard that. Because Because
Sorry, I'll lay it down. I'm doing my book now.
right. You better like replay that part, because here's the pearl. I'll give you guys a pearl of wisdom. If you would not have anything to do with these people, in other words, like when I was in corporate, I was assigned customers. I was assigned businesses that I had to go make profitable or launch programs. I didn't get a choice. Okay. But as an entrepreneur, if you guys are on the other side, you get to pick your customers. You don't have to work with people that if you saw that guy, like, and we'll go back to the guy who cut me off in traffic in the red Honda, and then he jumps in the elevator and shuts the door and doesn't hold anything, and then wants to act like he's a great guy, right? Why would you do business with why would you accept him as your customer? Because you've already seen something like that. And you don't have to deal with people like that. There are so many other wonderful people out there with great values that will treat you nice, because people that treat you with that disregard are going to not be kind to you the first time something isn't right or perfect that you do. And then they're going to be critical out there about you. They are not going to be your brand advocates. So you get to choose, just like you choose your friends. You can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends, and you can choose your clients if you're blessed enough.
Well, that's great. All right, now here we come. This has been fascinating, and again, I think we could spend much more.
Bring it in, Steve.
Bring it in, but I gotta bring it in. Because we're on time. The thing is, if someone wants to get to know you, connect with you, or a little bit more about Red Hawk, how would they go about doing that?
Oh, yeah, easy. So my website is elizabethduncanhawker.com. And I think you're going to put that in the chat for him. If you want,
I'm going to put it as a label underneath you.
Oh, good. So it's Elizabeth, and it's DUNCANHAWKER.com. And if you would do a / and secrets after that, you're actually going to get my 7 steps to effectively connect everywhere, every time. And it's my gift to you, just so that you've got something in front of you that reminds you how to show up. Because we're all coming out of this pandemic, and we're looking at, what have we forgotten? And I got to tell you, I'm a professional at this, but even myself going out there right now and talking to people, do you handshake? How do you make eye contact correctly? I mean, it's weird still. It's still weird out there. So these 7 steps will help you become a little bit more comfortable getting back out there.
Yeah. So as we kind of wean ourselves or integrate Zoom into our lives, or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And if we don't have the bumps, it goes up and down with that. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. And
my pleasure.
again, it's Steve Go with On the Road.